Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. I'm so grateful that you're with me, and I'm grateful to be presenting to you episode 165 of the podcast. It feels good to be here and to be recording this episode. I am so tremendously blessed and honored that I have this platform and that I have you as an audience so that I can share with you much of what I have learned in my journey, and you can use what I have learned to inform the work that you're doing, to inform the family in the way that you're raising your family, educating your children, or engaging in your community. And I participate in my community in so many different ways, and through that participation and engagement, I have learned so much. And I am someone who believes that as you learn, then you must also teach and share that which you learned so that you can be a benefit to those around you and demonstrate your gratitude for having these experience, the knowledge, the wisdom that is gained. And so in this episode 165, I am very, very thoughtful about what is happening with our youth, those things that are impacting our youth, and the outcomes that we see with our young people. And when I am referencing youth, specifically in this episode, I'm talking about our children who are in preschool, elementary, high school, and even our young adult population, 19, 20, 22. The way that our young people are made into consumers, and we are all consumers of something, whether it's media, retail products, thought. We're all consumers in some form or fashion, but what kind of consumers are we? And then also, what specifically are we consuming, and in what way? And so, thinking about our youth and thinking about the microscope that they're under, the influences that are upon them, I've come to the question, and I'm presenting it in this episode: what is activating our youth? Right now, we're seeing a rise in gun violence in the country in many, many major cities. We know that our youth are impacted, many by poverty, crime, but not just youth who are in what some may consider high risk areas, high risk environments, or who are at risk themselves. That's a term that's often used in reference to our youth, the at risk youth. But even our young people that may not be in poverty, may not be in a high crime area, what's activating them? I'm concerned about all of our youth, whether they're in the urban, the rural, the suburban environments. And what we may see and what we may learn is that what is activating our youth may be universal. It may be the same across the board. And so I have some questions that I'm going to pose to the listener, some questions that I'm posing even to myself to explore and investigate with my young people that I'm raising and the young people that I have influence over. And some of the influence that I have the fortune to have involves mentorship and the mentoring that I do in my local community. And as I'm speaking with them and engaging with them, I'm always very sensitive to what they're saying. I'm sensitive to how they're responding to what's being shared with them. And so these are some of the questions that come to mind as I'm wondering what's activating our youth. Do we know? And I urge you to definitely explore. One of the questions that comes to mind is, are we creating opportunities for our youth? What kind of opportunities? Whether they're academic opportunities, social opportunities, recreational opportunities, as their parents, as community leaders, as neighbors. Are we creating opportunities for our youth? Sometimes folks complain about what our young people are doing in the neighborhood. They're complaining about what the young people are doing in the street, and we may not like it. We may think that the behavior is unsatisfactory, delinquent in some cases. Well, then what opportunities have we created ourselves for our young people to engage in productive, positive activities? And I'll say, if we're not creating activities for our youth, then they will create their own activities. And then there are nefarious influences in and among us who will also create activities for them. Right now, our sex trafficking, human trafficking is a major, major problem in this nation. And it is certainly impacting our young people. And parents may not know it, but their own children in their own household may be impacted by sex trafficking themselves. And if you've listened to some of the conversations that have been held previously on an episode, specifically the episode that I did with Denise Poole, as we talked about human trafficking, human trafficking isn't just what we see in a movie like Taken with Liam Neeson, where a young person is being kidnapped and in Eastern Europe for, entrance into a sex ring. That is some of human trafficking or sex trafficking, but some is happening right out of our own homes, and we may not know it. It's happening right in our communities. Just because your child, may have perfect attendance at school, you get up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and you see a child in the morning, you may not be aware of what's happening. And there are nefarious actors who have, evil schemes and are scheming with our young people. And when they see young people who have nothing to do or who are idle and don't have activities being presented for them, I'm telling you, they are looking for the opportunity to engage our young people. So are we creating opportunities for our young people? We say, well, they're out past curfew. Well, when curfew comes and our young people are out, do they know that there is a curfew? Have they had other activities to engage in where they can see each other socially, engage in sports or recreation? And then also respect the curfew and respect those who are enforcing the curfew. We want to put the responsibility, or rather the blame, in the lap of the young people, but I would say that responsibility is ours. It's our responsibility to create and provide opportunities for our youth. And then a second question comes to mind. Are we keeping our young people safe when they're in our homes, at school, in organizations, and in their clubs? Again, just referencing the conversation that I had with Denise Poole on this podcast, that school may not always be a safe place. Home may not always be a safe place. Clubs and organizations may not always be a safe place. We know what's happened in the churches. We know what's happened in the in organizations like the Boy Scouts. So we must be protective of our children. We can't just let our children sleep over their friend's house, sleep over their cousins' homes. We have to be cautious about who we let in our own homes. We have to make sure that the environment that we put our children in are safe. What is their route to school like if they're walking to school every day? Who's standing on the corner? Who's selling or dealing or saying what to our young people? We allow our children to have a great deal of anxiety and insecurity because we're not policing the environment that our children are in. And when our children are not safe, then that puts an undue burden on them. and that it can impact their learning experience. That can impact whether they're attending school. That can impact the idea and esteem that they have of themselves. If our children are suffering with insecurity because they're not being made safe at home, in their clubs. As I say, I engage with young people in my community through mentor programs, youth programs. And as I facilitate some of these programs, I listen to even the speakers that come in. I listen to their tone. I watch how they behave with our young people. And I am someone who is quick to cut someone out of a program if I deem their language or the behavior is not suitable for our children. And that may not just come in someone being abusive physically or sexually. I'm even talking about tone of voice. You cannot interact with the young people that I have influence over if your voice and your tone and your posture and in some way has condemnation for these young people. Here, the children should be built up. Here, the children should be made to feel proud about themselves, the challenges that they're facing and the accomplishments that they have. And so even if your tone of voice in some way suggests something about that child that is insufficient or deficient, then you are cut from the program if I have any influence. So in the clubs, organizations, in our homes, there are family members who come visit and they'll say something to your child about their weight. They'll say something to your child about their hair texture. It is none of their business. So we even have to tell auntie or uncle or cousin so-and-so, I think it's time for you to leave. You can't talk to my child like that. And then have a conversation with the child. Our children need to see that they're being defended and that they're worthy of being defended. So we must protect our young people. Are we helping our children discover their interests and their talents? Are we discovering their interests and their talents? And I recall being very young and finding an interest in the sport of basketball, and it just happened by accident. And for a lot of young people, it happens by accident. So put your child in clubs and organizations so that they can try different things and find something that works for them. Whether it's a chess club, whether it's an academic club, put them in the spelling bee. Ask them if they want to try out for a play. Ask them if they want to play soccer or football or basketball, whatever it is. Get your child out of the home and into a sport or club or organization, something where they can engage and find a talent that you or they may not have known was there. But we have to help our children find interests, find their talents. And I'll tell you, when a child finds his or her talent and is able to grow that talent and excel, that impacts how that child feels about themselves, sees themselves, and sees themselves in the world. Another question, are we fortifying our children to help them manage the forces that work against them? The forces that work against their confidence, the forces that work against their esteem. You've heard me say before on this show that Revlon and Maybelline, they're not telling our daughters that they're beautiful just the way they are, right? Nissan or Ford has to sell a vehicle to you by influencing something that you think or feel about yourself. What do you need? Oh, you need an Amazon account. What do you need? You need a new iPhone. You need an Android, right? So as I mentioned, that we're consumers, right? We live in a society. We consume retail products. We consume media and information. And as we are consuming, as our children are consuming, often the messages are not those that fortify them, that are telling them that they're sufficient, that they're adequate, that they are worthy. And so not only do we want to monitor and limit some of the messaging that comes to them, whether it's music or YouTube or whatever, but we have to fortify them in building them up, letting them know that you're going to encounter a message that is going to suggest that there is something deficient, that there is something that you lack. So we have to prepare them for that messaging, and we have to fortify them and build them up so that when the messages come, and they do come, that they are not seriously impacted by those messages. We have to let our children know what to expect in the world. This world is not one that is built by them and in favor of them. We see this in so much, and I don't think I have to take too much time on this podcast helping to identify or explain why I'm saying that this world is not built by us and made to have us have great appreciation of ourselves, and this world does not have great appreciation of us. So in this world that they're going to encounter, we must prepare them for the onslaught, for the attacks. As you know, I am based out of Camden, New Jersey. I have been with our young people when they've been on their track teams or been in their social clubs, and they go to events and people say, uh-oh, here comes Camden. What are you saying to these children about themselves? And what impact is that kind of awful messaging having to these young people? Now, here you have a group of students who are engaged. They have mentors, they have parents, they have role models here to engage in an athletic event, in a social event, in an academic event. And you say, uh-oh, here comes Camden. So we have to prepare our children for this cruel, nasty world that they're going to encounter. So we have to build them up to be prepared to manage some of these challenges. And then lastly, a question that we must ask ourselves: are we giving our young people structure? We all need structure, right? And if we don't have structure, then things can quickly become chaotic. So we have to have help our young people have structure in their lives, whether that's academically, socially, when they are starting to work at 14 and 15 years old, structuring their time so that they can get out to work on time, structuring their book bags. This is something that, I've learned that, my children weren't great having their book bags or their notebooks structured. Our young people need structure. We need structure for our lives, structuring their finances. And so we have to help our young people to be structured. When life is structured, we spend a lot less time looking for things. We spend a lot less time running late when we are structured. So helping our children lead structured lives by structuring our own lives and being an example to them, that is so important. So some things, what's activating our children? So what I encourage you is to ask yourself some of these questions. Are we creating opportunities for our young people? Are we helping them to be safe in the spaces that they're occupying? Are we discovering their talents and their gifts and their abilities? Are we fortifying them and helping to make them strong? And are we giving our children structure? And structure starts in the home. Some thoughts, some questions to ask ourselves for our children to meet their potential, to be successful, to have the best start in life that they possibly can. We cannot blame the fruit, because the fruit is not a creation of itself. The fruit comes from the tree that bore it. So we have to look at ourselves. If we see our children unguided, undisciplined, delinquent, we have to examine ourselves. And so if we can get ahead of all of this, then we should, and we can get ahead of this. And at some time we have to provide some kind of intervention, some kind of prevention, then we have to do that as well. But it starts with us. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. It's a privilege and honor to have you with me each week, and I look forward to next week. But until then, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@norahspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.